So Pesach is called in Chazal Zman Cherus Einu. In other words, the mitzvahs hayom and the power of the time have a certain goal, a certain way, what they're going to bring us to. And that goal is Cherus. So if we want to be able to use Pesach in its fullest extent, obviously we'd have to understand what is even that goal so that we can know how to use the mitzvahs and the time to facilitate and manifest that goal. So the first thing we need to discuss is what is even this concept called cherus. So if we would define cherus, right, what would your definition be?
Well, they usually say freedom, and then the regular Torah is you're free to be a slave to Hashem.
Right. So you are quoting this strange member of Chazal, that Chazal say a person is not ben chorin elamisha osik batorah, which sounds completely random. What does asik batorah have to do with freedom? So before we even get to that Chazal, we first have to define what does it mean to be free. So of course that's true that a person who's in shackles, right, or owned by somebody, like the simple, like Paro owned the Jews, then obviously he's not free.
There are emotional shackles, right?
Right, but there's plenty of shackles that even if a person totally has nothing physical on them, right, societal shackles, emotional blocks, right, addictions, all of these things clearly don't let us be free. So we have to come up with an idea. What does it mean? What does it look like to actually be free? And
what does Pesach do to make it happen?
Right. So then we can understand what Pesach does to make it happen. But first, we have to understand what it means to be free. We first have to look at our goal, understand our goal, and then we can use the way to get there, which is the mitzvahs and the time period.
Can I suggest what I think?
Sure.
What seems to me is freedom should be, and I've already heard this before at some point, but freedom should be where I'm really fully in tune with my essence, which itself is really half me. I want to work on that. Really fully in tune with my essence as a person, and I'm free to have that fully expressed.
Exactly. So the definition of freedom means being completely true to yourself. And why is that? Because if there's some part of you which is blocked from being expressed, to that degree, that part of you is not free. Because it can't be in the world. So that means, in essence, that the pathway to freedom includes a person revealing their essence. Because if you don't even know what your essence is, then you can't even be aware that it's trapped. Right? So the first step of even thinking about Pesach, some people might intuitively say, let's look at my shackles, the things that are in my life that are bothering me.
Which is relevant too.
Which is definitely relevant, but that's short-sighted in the way that you only see a very tiny picture. Your focus is on the negative experience which bothers you. But if you go the opposite way, which is really what the word tshuva means. The word tshuva means to come back. Where you're coming back to. So you're coming back to your whole place, your full express place, which in time looked like the relationship between body and soul that existed in the beginning of time in Adam Rishon, where he was in Gan Eden. That's a place where he was fully expressed.
Right.
And what we did, what Adam Rishon did, was mess that up. And now we're going to spend the next 6,000 years coming back to a full expression of himself, which is what Hashem meant when he said to Adam Arishon in the word Ayeka. Where are you? You lost yourself. Right? Because I created you in a way that the 6 days of creation you didn't need to be involved in. The only part that you needed to be involved in was moving the world along from the end of the 6th day to Shabbos. And because you weren't true to yourself, now you have to bring the world where you actually have to recreate those 6 days that you destroyed. And that's why the mitzvah is Sheishis Yamim Tasem Alechtecha, right? That you have to be omel, you have to work in order to have your 6 days be complete, and only then you can go into Shabbos. Because he wasn't true to the reality that he was in, which is Gan Eden. He wasn't true to the neshama that he had, and therefore the place he put himself was a place where he wasn't fully expressed, and he has to now use the insides that he has. And this is a very important point. When Adam Rishon messed up the world, he only messed up the outer expression of the world, his body and his midos. But his soul still is in the same place that was in Gan Eden. The Olam HaNeshamos is the natural place for it, is Gan Eden, which means that Adam Rishon doesn't have to recreate Yesh Me'ayin, a world of being fully expressed. He just has to go do tshuva, which means come back to his essence, which is there.
Fascinating.
Which is existing in the world. And he has to listen to it and then teach his body and his midos to be in tune with it. And then he'll have freedom. He unshackles the existing pureness, the existing morals and values, the existing ability to connect, have an intimate connection with people, with yourself, and with God that is already inside of him. And the Torah, the purpose of the Torah is water, which means it's not supposed to create yesh me'ayin, morals and values and godliness and accomplishments. What it's supposed to do is water the seed of your neshama that already exists and bring it from possibility to actualization.
Oh, and that's why you're Ben Chayrin if you learn Torah, because then you're fully expressed.
Exactly. Because what the definition of a Jew, it needs to understand it a little deeper. The definition of a Jew, the definition of our soul, has 2 parts to it. Part number 1, to understand that we're not individuals in our definition. We're part of a greater thing called the Shechina. The Shechina means the place where Hashem is clearly living with us. Where he sat down, he came into our house, and instead of just walking around, he sat down and he has a chair in the house. He has a kisei hakavod. He's consistently in our life and we can experience him and feel him. The place that is expressed, the people and the makom are Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, around the Beis HaMikdash. Every one of Am Yisrael is a part in that expression. The mashal is like a body, that to have a full body, you need every cell. And when a cell is not there, there's something deeply missing in the body. An organ, a cell, a gid, every one of Am Yisrael is a part of that. They're like, the Gemara says that tzadikim lifnei hashchina is like the ner lifnei avuka. It's like a candle in front of a torch. The torch comprises a lot of different flames, right? So a tzaddik, what he's doing is he's manifesting his essence, which is not just his own potential, but the potential of the conglomerate of the expression of Hashem, which he has one part in it. But he's actualizing something much greater than his self. And the Shechina what is the Shechina? The Shechina is the place, is like the body of Hashem, of Kudsha Brichu. It's like the place, the kli, where the Or of Hashem can exist. Just like you have a neshama, that if a neshama is flying around in the world, in this world no one can experience it until it goes inside of a body, because then we have a way of interfacing with that neshama, right? Like understanding a language. Like if someone speaks a different language, even though you have the same interests and you can actually have a good conversation, but you actually can't have the conversation because you're missing the intermediary. You're missing the language. So a guf is the place for the neshama to be able to show up in this world. The same way is true, in order for Hashem to interface with this world, he needs a kli that from this world we can experience it. So things that happen to Am Yisrael, things that happen in Eretz Yisrael, are the way the world interfaces with the expression of Hashem in the world. Right? That's what it means. Yichud kuchabricha v'shchinte. That the expression of Hashem is like the neshama, that has a place in the world, that everybody in the world can interface with it. And Am Yisrael's job as Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kodesh, as the mashal of a woman married to a man, right? We are married to Hashem, is to bring Hashem through expressing in our life, and then the whole world can interface with it, and the whole world is full of Das Hashem.
How do I experience Klal as a collective? Because right now, I sort of experience us as individuals who do affect each other, but I don't see it as sort of one unit.
Well, it's actually extremely easy in this world, since we're living in Israel. So the entire world relates to us as the Israelis. When one person goes on a mountain in the Shomron, or one Chaver Knesset goes on the Har HaBayis.
So they see all the Jews, so what?
It's not because they see all the Jews, but so what? That's how it interfaces with the world. In other words, because we're a nation, and because we have a land, so the entire world relates to us as a nation in a land, a country.
It's the same thing with Muslims, let's say. For Muslims, the terrorist attacks, everybody always assumes that all Muslims are violent.
So you're right that the Muslim is represented by the religion called Islam. But unlike the Muslims, there is no place or nation called Islam or Muslims. You can have many, many different countries. So you can't really have a place, a time, or a people which represent the morals and values of Islam. You just have people who decided to do actions, religious actions. Unlike that, Am Yisrael existed way before we had the Torah. And as we are in Eretz Yisrael, there are many people who don't keep Torah, but they're still Am Yisrael, and they still are the kli for Hashem to come into the world, which is why everything that happens in Israel happens not in Teva, because we are still the place where Hashem shows up. So every time something happens, the 6-Day War, Yom Kippur War, any wars we have, missiles fly over, it's a broadcast to the entire world. Hashem is here in this world. And to the degree we make the kollelim, and of course Torah and mitzvahs are the way to make the kli the best, that's how loud the broadcast can go to the rest of the world. And that's our job. But as an individual, like Avram Avinu, the broadcast was extremely limited. Right? It didn't represent, Hashem didn't show up in the world, he showed up in a person. But if he's in a place, and he's in a nation, then everybody sees that this nation is godly. This place is an expression of God. And they can.
Why shouldn't it be for the whole world?
It is for the whole world. It's just different. The world, each part of the world has different type of expressions. So the job of Am Yisrael is the Shechina, which means it's like the same way there's a difference between if a man has a certain job in the world, okay? So his wife facilitates that job, and she experiences that job much more than everybody else. But of course, the rest of the world is impacted by whatever goodness he brings into the world. But she has a different job. So Am Yisrael's job is to be the place where all of that shows up inside of us. But the point of it is to express over the whole world. And the rest of the world will also be a kli to receive that light. to receive that, but it'll be a kli in a different way. It's not like an intimate way, like a husband and a wife, right? It's that it's a way of, they have a certain, let's say you have a certain culture which brings out, like the Greeks brought out science, okay? Or a country that has, like America, represented ideas of freedom, of chesed, right? They brought out a certain functionality, the world is evolved to a more pure place. That was their job to bring that out into the world, right? But the actual relationship where Hashem is, I am here because you are mine, that's Am Yisrael's job. So if we want to talk about freedom is going to depend on every person individually, what their essence is. So Am Yisrael, in their essence, the word Yisrael means Yesh Shishim Riboy Osios Batorah, La Torah. In other words, because we are the expression of Hashem in the world, what that means is that the Torah's values, the Torah's ideas, we're the ones who are supposed to bring that out. So when we are truthful to ourselves, we are fully expressed. We're true to ourselves. What we're true to is the values that our neshama expresses of the Torah. So when we are osik b'Torah, which means the Torah waters our seeds and lets our seed grow, what it's growing is the full expressed development of those morals and values of the Torah in the world. And that's what it means, Yuchud Kuchabrin Shevishchinte, that Hashem is fully expressed through the neshamas of Am Yisrael into the world, that everybody can see that these values, this country is godlike. It works with morals like God, and it has the rules that Hashem runs the world, and therefore things don't necessarily have to work according to the rules of nature, but it's an expression of everything that God is through people. So if we really want to be truthful to ourselves, here's this thing. Way before you talk about the things that bother you, you first have to go into your essence and listen to your essence. Because the things that bother you are the things that stop you from becoming your full-fledged being. Which means that every person in the world has a deep awareness of the truth, which is that they're individual, they are a needed part of the creation, that without them the creation would be totally different. And they're a necessary component for the creation to move forward to its ultimate completion. There never was a human being that was extra. This human being never was in the world before. The time was never here before. The opportunities were never here before. And the more truthful he is to his essence, the better off the world is going to be. But his essence is unique. His essence has an individual role in the world that no one else has. And therefore, for him to be truly free, he needs to be able to listen to himself and discover what he knows internally is his purpose in the world. What pulls him. Now, objectively, there's morals and values that have to do with his objective for every single person. That's the Torah for Am Yisrael, and the Sheva Mitzvah Noach for the rest of the world, right? But there are people who have certain connection to certain morals and values, things that are more dear to them than others. For example, some people need to be doing chesed all the time, right? That if they weren't doing chesed, they would feel like there's something wrong with my existence. I'm not being me. There are other people, now it doesn't mean chesed is of higher value than the rest of the morals and values in the Torah, but for this person, it is definitely more important than other things because he can't be himself unless he actualizes this midah in the world. And if he wouldn't, the world wouldn't be the same because it wouldn't have him. So now it becomes for him deeply more important than anything else. So for a person to be truthful to themselves, they need to get in touch with their personal mission in the world, and also to understand where their position in the world, what is it part of a greater whole. In other words, if you're a Jew, then your mission in the world of doing chesed specifically relates to the chesed that shows how much Hashem is in the world doing that chesed. And if it wouldn't manifest all of that, it would be lacking in being true to himself as being part of the Shechina of the Gilui of Hashem in the world. Whereas you might find a person who's Chinese, right, and he has a very, very important job in the world, right, but it wouldn't necessarily manifest itself in dedicating to have a consistent, intimate connection with God like he is showing up in my life all the time. It would be a very clear goal of truth and value to the world, that the whole world would change and grow because he did this amazing thing in the world. But it would look different. He would be more true to himself if he was listening to what he was and doing that. Now, the midah that is necessary to do that is the midah of tamimus. Because we have two kollelim inside of ourselves. One keli is called seichel. Now, seichel is complicated. Seichel has ideas, this, that. And seichel can make all kinds of mistakes and have all kinds of assumptions, right? Tamimus is just being pure to yourself. No additions. It's just the way Hashem created you and being true to that. Which is why the Maharal says from a pasuk in Mishlei that the definition of tamimus, of the whole psukim in Mishlei, discuss two different kitzonim, two different expressions that are opposite. Right? So the opposite of tamimus is boged.
What does boged mean?
Boged means not being true to, not being trustworthy. So when you're not tam, you're not simple, you're overcomplicated. What you're doing is not being truthful, not being ne'eman to yourself. Because you're not allowing yourself, you have all kinds of ideas and you see this person and you say, wow, that person's amazing. I want to be like him. And you say, okay, I'm going to now be a plumber. And then you say, oh, now I'm going to be a Talmud Chacham. And oh, now I'm going to be a Rosh Hashiva. And oh, now, because this looks so amazing, right? And it is amazing. But it has nothing necessarily to do with you. So to be true to yourself, to not be a boged, you have to be simple and listen without all kinds of ideas of what should be and what's better and what's worse and hierarchies and ideas of gaiva and like, wow, how could I do that? Like, can you imagine the guy who decides that my shlichus in life is spend my life in the sewer? I'm going to clean up all the disgustingness of the world every single day, right? You can say, oh my God, like, how could it be? Like, I'm dirty all the time, right? But can you imagine a world without that? So if he's pure, if he's true to himself, if he's not a chachmalog, not thinking about all kinds of things, then he'll get to the place of like, you know what, I have a burning desire to do this. And I don't even care if you look at it bad, if you look at it good, if you think I'm as good as you, it's irrelevant because this is me. And I want to be this. I want to be myself. I want to be free. So the necessary midah for a person to be free is to listen to his inner voice without complication, without should be, couldn't be, all kinds of judgments, right? The art of listening, anybody who knows that when you go to somebody and you want to share your life with them, and the second you open up your mouth, they start arguing with you, that's not legitimate, that's stupid, they have all kinds of judgments, they interrupt you, they ask questions that are not relevant, they don't let you expose yourself really fully, you feel completely that you weren't born, like you were withheld your existence from being expressed in the world. So we need to do that be'anila atzmi. In order for me to be in a bris with myself, connective to myself, I need to listen. And I need to listen to all parts of myself. Whether it's my body, whether it's my midos, which usually expresses in emotional health, and whether it's my neshama, telling me what my tafkid is in the world. All of these things need to be listened to with intent, and to discover as much as possible what's the end game. Imagine what would happen when you're 120 and you leave the world and you're super excited and happy and all the people around you are so proud of you because you did this. To the degree that you let your insides feed you what that looks like, then that's more freedom. After that, after you have your goal, then it makes sense to start looking at the things that we feel don't give us freedom. Because then we can actually see whether or not it doesn't give me freedom. Maybe it does give me freedom. Maybe it's actually directing myself exactly to the place that I want to go. Because I'm not supposed to be a Rosh Yeshiva, and I'm not supposed to be a Rav, and I'm not supposed to be a scientist. I'm supposed to be a plumber. And that's why I feel blocks about these things. How my inner world works. For example, there's a lot of things that are called machalas, like we have ADD, right? A person who can't pay attention in school, right? So we say, oh, this person, you're messed up, right? But if this would be true to themselves, like, I don't want to sit in front of a book. I don't care. Doesn't interest me. That's not my purpose in life. I want to use my hands. I want to go do stuff. I want to create stuff. So if that person is true to themselves, there's no block there that they can't read a book. It's not part of your thing. My mother, Allah Shalom, she failed chemistry twice, and she was really determined. I'm gonna finally do chemistry. And she went to her Rav, and she's like, what can I do? I got to pass this chemistry test. And he's like, why do you want to learn chemistry? You obviously, it's not playing for you. That's why you failed it twice. Why? And she's like, wow, you know what? I don't have any interest in chemistry. I'm just doing it because I'm supposed to do it. Because they told me, societal pressures told me, this is called being mutzlach. This is called being a person who was successful. And that's not even true. There is no such thing as being successful objectively. Success means that I have brought myself to full potential. Myself, my essence, my job in the world, right? And usually the job in the world is expressed in the name. Not necessarily when we see our name do we have any idea why that expresses our shlichus. That's what it says in this week's parasha. Vayakel re'ei no I karasi b'shem es Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lematei Yehuda. So the Medrash says when they called him Betzalel at his bris, they didn't know why they called him Betzalel. But when he's starting to build the Mishkan, they realized, B'tzel El. It's like when Moshe Rabbeinu was talking, Hashem was talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, telling about the Mishkan, you were like hiding in the shadows. You were like hearing the whole thing yourself and having an understanding of it, that even like Moshe Rabbeinu had a certain understanding, B'tzel had a better understanding, and he was right about the order of the kollelim and the binyan HaMishkan. So your name, your essence, describes your shlichus in life. Not only can we use the name to figure it out, but after we start realizing and listening, we can actually look at our name and say, wow, that's perfect. That's a full expression of myself. So in order to be free, we need two practical steps. The ability to listen. Listen means no judgment, no bantering and questioning, creating a safe space where all parts of you can talk and you just waiting for to be fully expressed. You need to be quiet. You need to be having alone time. I like what I heard from Shem Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. He says that a person who has no alone time doesn't have tzuras adam. What did he mean by that? Because you're not being yourself. You're not the human being that was created. You're trying to be something else. Because you're busy trying to satisfy the rest of the world and not being true to yourself. So the first step is to be able to listen. And the second step is to be able to accept. And this comes in the midah of being tum, being simple, not overcomplicating things. If your insides want to do something and it makes you feel satisfied and good, know that's a huge value to the world. Don't be overcomplicated and say, no, that's not such a value because this is more of a value. Every single person does something that without him, the world wouldn't be the same. he's needed in his life in that time period. And all of the things that built him, whether it's his family or the difficult things that he went through, all of those things are exactly the way they're supposed to be in order for him to be fully expressed and the world to be moved forward towards the ultimate shleimus because he's that way. So we need simplicity. We need to look at our life and say, wow, you see that? That's amazing. Okay, I'm going to do that. And you need to believe in yourself, which is basically a belief in God. Because if God created you that way, that's a proof, that's the most perfect thing that needs to come into the world at that time. Whether he created you not smart, whether he created you with no money, whether he created you as a boy or a girl, gay, transgender, whatever he created you as, you should know that being that way is exactly what the world needs at this point. And without you being that way, the world wouldn't get to where it needs to go. So the deep simplicity comes from a deep trust. A trust in, I trust you that it's perfection. You, God, created me this way. I want to be this. This is the way it's totally supposed to be. Now, obviously, that's true not only for yourself, it's true how you treat other people. Right? And you can help actualize other people's being their full expression themselves. Other people being free if you treat them with the same midos. If you try to control people and decide for them what they're supposed to be, then you are shackling and enslaving humanity to your version of reality. And it's really going against God, because you're saying, I'm smarter. Even though this person has certain ways of being tchunos, he has certain attributes he was born with, really, I know that the world, I can create the world better, and I'm going to force this person to be that way.
There are actual mediot, like for example, a lot of parents are not able to homeschool their kids, and they have to send their kids to school, even if the schools are not helping them express their essence at all.
So that's also part of the process this person needs to go through to be in an environment which shuts them down, doesn't give them full expression, and in order to have full expression, they actually have to have resistance. What happens when a person has resistance? They push forward and something even bigger comes out. Where had they not had resistance, they would have done a mediocre job. So the fact that your environment, the schools you were able to send your children to, the schools that you had to go to, that's not an accident. These are all part of your development. But the point I'm trying to make is we shouldn't teach people how they have to be. We should teach people morals and values that are objective, like the Torah. But afterwards, how their personal expression in life should be, their goals, how they want to live, where they want to live, what job they want to do, what they want to learn, to decide that for somebody else is enslaving them. And to decide it for yourself based on social norms, or based on ideas of the place you're in, or based on the fact that this person said so, is not being true to yourself. And you can completely lose your name, lose your essence, and feel deeply unsatisfied because you never took the time or the belief in yourself and the belief in God to decide, you know what, this is what I want, this is good for me, and I'm going to do this.
When should a parent stop telling their kids what to do and where to go and where not to go?
A parent should never tell their kids what to do. A parent should teach their kids morals and values that are objective, and always discuss with the kids what is important to them, what they want. And like in any relationship, if you love somebody, you help them get fully express what they want, while teaching them how to be a full expressed image of God that they actually are. So in actually the Torah, you're talking about parents, but the Torah is the same thing. When people put boundaries on children, or the Torah puts boundaries on us, if the parent is not developed, or if a person misunderstands the Torah, then they're going to experience that this person is squishing me, controlling me, not letting me be me. I want freedom. I want the ability to do whatever I want. Mashal ma'adavar doma, you go to a doctor. The doctor says, listen, if you eat sugar, you're going to become diabetic and you're going to have a short life. you shouldn't eat sugar. Right? So what is this doctor doing? Is this doctor controlling this person? Is this doctor making this person less fully expressed? Or is he telling this person, if you want to be alive, your body needs no sugar. This will be a full expression of yourself. A good parent, and the definition of the Torah, assuming that we have good midos, understanding Hashem, is a way of actualizing the child to be the most full version of himself, which is good, an image of God, which means he has to have good midos and morals, but doesn't include deciding for the child what is important to him and not important to him. If something is important to your child, then that should be a goal of yours to make that happen, assuming that it's a true expression of their essence. In other words, it comes from good midos. And if you shut your children down because you've decided what is the right way to be, what's going to happen is either that child is going to die, meaning to say he's going to be a shell of a human being, or he will have to fight you off because that's correct. Because in order for him to be free and to be alive, he needs to get rid of your avdus. Which is true for a lot of people, how they view the Torah. The version of the Torah they actually were taught, and the view of the Torah that is inside of their being is one of shackles, control, not actualizing my potential. And in order for them to be themselves, a full expression of God, they have to throw off that Torah. Because that Torah actually isn't the Torah. It's someone's interpretation. It's someone's ideas. Someone who decided they want to control people's Torah. And that Torah should be destroyed. Because that's not real Torah. It's like there are some people who don't believe in God because their neshama is telling them that version of God is not true. I also don't believe in that God because that God is fiction. That God is control. That God is cruel. So their neshama tahora, their created image of God rejects this shackles of a being, a deity that's like that, correctly so. So many times when people are doing they're rebelling, what they're actually doing is they're not rebelling at all. They're rebelling on the outside, but the inside they're becoming free.
One second. So that was really helpful for me because I came to understand something about what I need to. One second.